Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. We've been waiting for a month to see what the Trump administration is going to actually do about Ukraine. So far, it's been a lot of words, a lot of maybes, but no concrete statements, no concrete actions. Finally, we are there. What happened is Trump and his administration representatives came out on the world stage and put on their big boy diplomatic pants and promptly shut themselves. And I'm not talking they dropped a piece here and there. I'm talking about Niagara Falls level of shitting themselves. You know, the liquid and smelly one with a little bit of a fart in between coming out of all of the holes that the pants have. It was truly a sight to behold because no one was really expecting that Trump's administration will be very favorable to Ukraine. However, during the last month, there was not much activity in this direction, and this allowed for some speculation and some lingering hope to appear in the air that maybe it's going to be some kind of a reasonable solution. There was no real sanctions that got canceled, despite the fact that the committee that enforced sanctions on the US side was gutted by the Trump administration. Weapon deliveries were still ongoing to Ukraine, despite the fact that there were no new weapon deliveries approved. So overall, especially looking at the fact that Kit Kellogg, the person that had seemingly relatively reasonable approach to the conflict, wanted to make this some kind of a peace deal that would satisfy both the Europeans, Ukrainians, and Moscow. It wouldn't be ideal, but it would be a potential negotiated solution. We've critiqued that extensively already. However, it all went down the toilet very, very fast, as the special envoy from the President Trump to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, flew to Moscow to negotiate release of a hostage of Putin, Mark Vogel, to get him released. And they had an extensive conversation with Putin, and supposedly they agreed on certain terms, and they agreed to have a call with President Trump. After which they had a, how he would say, very beautiful call with President Trump, and he came out with a lot of statements. And in these statements, there was everything that you just could expect from the Russian propaganda. It became instantly clear for anyone that Putin just manipulated and buttered up Trump exactly as he wanted. The message was just beaming with the Russian propaganda. But the most important thing is when Donald Trump started describing who will be his envoys to head towards these talks for Russia, some kind of negotiated, I cannot call it a peace agreement, but you get what I mean. And specifically that Kit Kellogg is absent from the list of people that that's going to be assigned to this, which is an instant red flag, because arguably Kit Kellogg was the more reasonable representative from this group. And things didn't improve after that, because Pete Hegseth made a speech at the Munich Security Conference where he talked about what is the US expectations for this war and what Ukraine should be expecting from this war. And it went down as like swallowing a bag of nails.
We want, like you, a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine. But we must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops. If these troops are deployed as peacekeepers to Ukraine at any point, they should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission, and they should not be covered under Article 5. There also must be robust international oversight of the line of contact. To be clear, as part of any security guarantee, there will not be U.S. troops deployed to Ukraine.
And some might say, well, George, isn't he just like saying it how it is? That, you know, after 2014, Russia captured Crimea. I mean, everyone kind of agreed, and no one was really enforcing any major sanctions against Russia. Everyone kind of got into the silent agreement that Crimea belongs to Russia. As for NATO, well, also there is like this silent agreement. Biden administration was pretty rock solid on this. And as for European troops in Ukraine, well, I mean, it's great that that's being discussed, but the problem here is that even before the negotiations have started, they already laid out all of the positions that we love Russia. Ukraine is not even needed that much into our conversations between Trump and Putin. And we're actually already agreeing by default to the things that Russia was only dreaming about getting, which is like the international recognition of the captured territory of Ukraine, agreement that Ukraine will not be part of NATO, and that United States will not participate into the military mission in Ukraine. Moreover, that mission will not be covered by the Article 5. So that's just win, win, win for Russia, even before any talks have started. It's so non-starter that it's been absolutely dismissed and despised from all sides of the aisles. Now, there has been more civilized expressions by the German Minister of Defense here telling about that maybe it's not so good that United States puts a cart before the horse here, but also it made huge shockwaves through the European continent. Allies, politicians, media figures, regular people, everyone felt this hit them. And the responses were pretty much unanimous. I'm going to let this clip play right over here, but just please recognize that this is basically what every single European feels like.
Is forced to surrender its own sovereign territory to Russia. It will be the greatest betrayal of a European ally since Poland in 1945. But President Trump says Ukraine may end up Russian, and he wants American money back. I think we all fear where this could end and the dangerous implications for our defence and our security. So can the Prime Minister reassure this House that he and other European leaders have given sufficient support to President Zelensky so that he can't be bullied by Trump and Putin into accepting a deal that will effectively hand victory to Russia?
So any kind of prior agreements with US, any kind of allied relationships, any international law recognition of territorial integrity, the point of not allowing of change of borders by force, all of these things, even if they were not said out loud beforehand, even if it was true factually, the fact that it's now stated as the policy of United States changes everything. The whole architecture of the world has now been absolutely scrambled. And to put it that everyone in Europe feels betrayed by the United States is an understatement of the century. And the biggest proof to that is the Russian stock index. Because after these events, Russian stock index just skyrocketed. In 2 days, Gazprom just gained over 16% growth, and it's not stopping yet. It is ludicrous just how efficient this was to boost Russian confidence, how all of the optimism returned into the Russian Federation, how belief in Putin and what he's doing is right came back in all of the propaganda media narratives. Moreover, the discussion and like the narratives that Putin has been building so far, that democracies are weak, that if he just holds the pressure for long enough, then there's definitely going to be someone on the democratic side that's just going to come crawling and he's going to offer something on the silver platter. It absolutely validates everything that was happening against our democratic world. Everything that Putin said democracies are was truth. And I know what you want to say. You want to say is like, yes, but Europeans are not doing enough. They're not supporting enough. True, and they should be doing enough. But it doesn't change the fact that what US just did was absolutely crumbling and destroying any kind of resemblance of that narrative of a world order that they have been feeding us for decades. It's gone. There is obviously disbelief in Ukraine on what's happening. People are also shocked. They also feel that this is a betrayal, and a lot of the people that I know personally are having a very serious personal grudge against the United States. And this is not good. This is definitely not good and not healthy for the future of the world. Trump also made some statements in the Oval Office, specifically with regards to question whether or not he sees Ukraine as the subject.
Do you view Ukraine as an equal member of this peace process?
It's an interesting question. I think they have to make peace. Their people are being killed, and I think they have to make peace. I said that was not a good war to go into, and I think they have to make peace. That's what I think.
Basically almost showing that no, that what he wants to do is essentially what Putin proposes, which is the Yalta-style conference where the fate of Europe will be decided by these big players, and that they will just impose whatever they decide on top of existing world order. And this is exactly where I think is going to be the big clash and reality check for the Trump administration. Because while they want to do this, while there is this optimism inside of Russia that potential negotiations are coming and that they're going to just force their will on the Ukrainians, the fact of the matter is that current Ukraine is not Ukraine beforehand. Ukraine has learned, they went through these non-solutions with Minsk and so on, and they already have stated that they have zero interest, if they're not participated in talks, to accept anything that is going to be pushed on them. Moreover, European representatives have also came out in droves and stated that no, we do not agree with this. What we do agree is that we need to support Ukraine more. And Kaja Kallas obviously knows everything there is to know about Russia. We're going to view this clip over here where she talks about the potential deal and what it could mean if it's done behind Ukraine's and Europeans' backs. And I'm also going to show the little bit older clip where she talks about the Soviet tactics for negotiations, and you're just going to draw instant parallels of what is happening here exactly.
I want to say that, if there is agreement made behind our backs, it will simply not work, because you need, for any kind of deal, any kind of agreement, you need Europeans to implement this deal. You need the Ukrainians to implement this deal. So, that doesn't also look good if somebody agrees something and, everybody else says that, okay, fine, you have agreed, but we will not follow this. Ukrainians will resist, and we will support them. Russia is making the demands, Russia is threatening, and now if we think that, let's offer them something, then they actually get something that they didn't have before. And I've quoted this foreign minister, Alexei Gromyko, Soviet time foreign minister, several times, who said about the negotiation tactics of Soviet Union. Three things. First, demand the maximum. Do not ask, but demand something that has never been yours. Second, present ultimatums, threaten. And third, do not give 1 inch in negotiations, because there will be always people in the West who will offer you something. And then in the end, you will have 1/3 or even 1/2 of something you didn't have before.
The obvious main question that is left hanging in the air is, how bad would it be if these talks fail, then US just kind of withdraws themselves from the war? Well, there are 3 major things that US is absolutely irreplaceable for Ukraine. They're doing a lot, but there are 3 absolutely irreplaceable things. Number 1 is Patriot missiles. Patriot systems so far in Ukraine are pretty much the only ones that can shut down ballistic targets. So any kind of Russian missiles that are ballistic, for the majority of the security of Ukraine, they need additional Patriot missiles, and there is no way around it. Europe just doesn't have analogs of Patriot systems that they can produce in large enough quantities to help sustain Ukraine. Secondly, HIMARS systems and HIMARS missiles, both the ATACMS, which is more valuable, and also the GIMLRS rockets. Those are like rocket artillery missiles. So both of them are crucial for Ukraine for the counter battery fire, and also they are used to counter the big groups of enemies on the battlefield. Without supply of these systems, Ukraine will struggle, and again, there is no good substitute for these missiles. There is no large-scale production anywhere. And finally, it's the sanctions. Sanctions are critical for Ukraine to continue exerting pressure. And this is mostly the oil sanctions, but also the way how Russia circumvents those sanctions. It's specifically putting pressure on the third parties like China and other countries that wanted to trade with Russia. This pressure allowed Ukraine to basically drain Russian budget, and it prevents Russia in growing significantly their military budget because the cost for it is extremely high. And in European Union, we don't have such a powerful tools to enforce European sanctions as to compare the Americans have. It's much better that way. Now, this is probably also the weakest point because Ukraine, with their drone initiative, has been targeting a lot of the oil production, but if the sanctions are removed, it's not going to make it easier for Ukraine to fight Russia for sure. Therefore, our hopes are that the Europeans will rise up to the challenge, mostly to support Ukraine, but also to secure ourselves. There is a security problem, for example, in the German military. The Danish intelligence also stated and released a great report, which we're probably going to look at in a separate video, about the fact that, but for Russia, after the war in Ukraine is done, in 5 years, they will be ready to fight NATO in Europe. It's a very damning report, and there is a lot of issues that we need to cover. So investing in our own defense is absolutely crucial for us right now. And the best way you can help right now, before our politicians are still trying to figure it out, is to support the Ukrainian armed forces directly. Participate in fundraiser, this one or another one, whichever you like. Please, please, please continue supporting Ukraine. They need it. They need your help more than ever. Support the Ukrainian armed forces. Trust the Ukrainian armed forces. Ukrainians are not giving up, nor are Europeans. I am not giving up. I love you. Slava Ukraini. And I'll see you next time.